Hi, and welcome back to my channel. If you have not watched any of my videos before, my name is Derek. I post a lot of random content on a irregular basis, and I'm so happy that you have decided to join me in today's video. I am going to explain a few books that I had recently picked up, and that I am very, very, very excited to read. As you can see, my lovely bookcase, this is what I guess a lot of booktubers call their TBR, to be read. I have read a lot of different books over the past year, or over the past years rather. I'm a huge book nerd. I will generally read anything I can get my hands on. In particular, I love reading Victorian literature. I like reading horror. I like reading Christian literature. And like I said, I will read anything I can get my hands on. And boy, dude, do I have a good pile of books that I had recently picked up, and like I said, I am so excited to get to. And so that's what we're going to be talking about in this video, this beautiful stack of books right there. So the first one is written by a person named Kazuo Ishiguro. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that book right. This is The Remains of the Day. I picked this up at a used bookstore a few days ago, and I'm just going to read a little bit, or I'm just going to read the summary on the back. The New York Times book review says it's one of the best books of the year. I remember I'm at this used bookstore and it just caught my eye. Namely the cover. I don't know why, but this cover just really stuck out to me, and I just knew this would be a good read. And I'm talking to the guy in charge of BDS bookstore, it's like I said, used bookstore, and he raved about this book. And he, at the same time, he also criticized it a little bit, saying it's boring as heck, but it's also a really good read, which was contradictory, but hey, it's Fargo. So anyways, The Remains of the Day is a profoundly compelling portrait of the perfect English butler and of his fading insular world in post-war England. At the end of his 3 decades of service at Darlington Hall, Stevens embarks on a country drive, during which he looks back over his career to reassure himself that he has served humanity by serving a great gentleman. But lurking in his memory are doubts about the true nature of Lord Darlington's greatness, and graver doubts about his own faith in the man he served. So I'm reading the back cover, and I flip through it, of course, like I usually do. And the thing that really intrigues me about it is I really like reading Victorian lit, and I don't know what it is, but I find England to be a very interesting place, especially in the 1800s. The books that came out of that, the stories that come out of that decade are beyond amazing. If you haven't read anything in that time period, I would highly suggest. It is an acquired taste. But let's back up a little bit. Why do I like Victorian England? Why do I like classics so much? And it essentially stems from freshman English. I had a wonderful, wonderful English teacher, Mrs. Conant, and one of the first books that we had read was A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. Now, before that, I liked Charles Dickens. I can't remember what grade it was. I know it must have been at least 2nd or 3rd grade, The Cricket on the Hearth. And I remember thinking, hey, this is a really good story. And then, obviously, you would get exposed to probably one of his most famous works, A Christmas Carol. Love that story. I have a thing for ghosts. I actually wanted to talk about my interest in ghosts and all that stuff in a later video at some point. I don't know when, but I do want to talk about it a little bit. A Christmas Carol just blew me away. Just the whole concept of ghosts, Christmas, past, present, and future. It sparked something in me. And I kind of stopped after a while because I was getting into Harry Potter, and I loved that. And I love that series so much. I've seen all the movies, obviously, read all the books. Well, anyways, back to my rant on why I enjoy reading classic literature. The stories are beyond amazing, and there's something about them that really intrigues me. I'm not sure what it is. I've been told I have an old soul, that maybe that's part of it. I don't know. But I just absolutely love reading classics. And I remember when we would have discussions in English class, I had a better understanding of like Edgar Allan Poe. I've been like racking my brain because I've been thinking about the story that we read in junior, yeah, it was junior English class. We read an Edgar Allan Poe story. Oh, I want to say it was the Pit. I think, yeah, it was The Pit and the Pendulum. Okay, love Edgar Allan Poe. I'm reading the story in class, and we were having a discussion, and there was a passage in the story that really related to near-death experiences, and I just immediately picked up on it. And I remember in class, I can't remember the name of my English teacher, but the students were like turning their heads going, what, huh, what, huh, 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 hmm? And my English teacher was like, you know that? And I'm like, yeah, I do. And so that just fueled my appreciation for classic literature, first and foremost. And it also got me hooked on Edgar Allan Poe. He's one of my favorite writers. The Raven, love that poem. My favorite story by Edgar Allan Poe is The Telltale Heart in particular. Just the idea that guilt can just rack someone to the point of confessing to a murder, and I just love that story. But anyways, moving on. I don't want to make this my rant on classical literature. There's a lot more for me to talk about in this video, but yeah, huge classic lit fan. I will read anything that says this is classical literature. I just love classic lit. So the next book that I picked up, this was longer than the previous Remains of the Day, but The Essex Serpent. Almost called it The Essex Chronicles. Let's read a little bit from the back. Again, London, 1893. It's probably why I got drawn into this. There's another reason for that, and I'm going to talk about that in a really soon becoming video where I review a book that I had recently. Well, I'm not all the way done. Anyways, let's just get back to this. I rant, okay? London, 1893. Seeking refuge after the death of her husband, Cora Scaborn departs for coastal Essex. Once there, she hears rumors that after nearly 300 years, the mythical Essex Serpent, a fearsome creature that once roamed the marshes, has returned. Eager to investigate, Cora is introduced to parish vicar William Ramsome. As they attempt to discover the truth, these seeming opposites find themselves inexorably drawn together. And as their pursuit becomes more urgent, Cora's London past follows her to the coast with striking consequences. Originally, I was not going to pick up this book. I was actually in search of Sarah Perry's other book, Melmoth. Like I said, I'll get into that in a very soon to be released video, because I actually read Melmoth the Wanderer. And I'll just say I just absolutely loved it, but I don't want to, obviously, talk about it in this video. But originally it was just going to be Melmoth, and I remember, because I didn't know where exactly this book would be. I didn't know if it was YA fiction, I didn't know if it was adult fiction, not that it matters, but yeah. And I just remember the seller had recommended taking a look at this book, and I'm like, okay. So I looked at it, I did the typical, like, let's go through the pages, and I knew I needed this. Not that I need more books, but I love books. So I'm, like, really stoked to read this, and I don't know what it is, but rereading the back again, I'm starting to see Melmoth in this book, even though it's not technically about Melmoth. But I am just so excited to read this. I think I might actually fall in love with this book. So the next one, Crystal Smith's Bloodleaf. Ooh, there's a glare. Crystal Smith's Bloodleaf. There's a story behind this book in particular. As I said, I liked Harry Potter. I like the fantasy. And I hadn't read a fantasy book in a while. And I started watching booktubers, in particular Jessie the Reader and Murphy Nabler, I think is her YouTube channel. Well, I started watching a lot of these booktubers, and they're always talking about fantasy books and all that stuff, and it got me really intrigued because they would not shut up about Bloodleaf, and I'm like, huh. And so, being the book nerd I am, I decided to pick it up. So, from the flap in the inside, Princess Aurelia is a prisoner to her groan. That moment when things don't necessarily make sense. Princess Aurelia is a prisoner to her groan in the heirs that nobody wants, surrounded by spirits and banned from using her blood magic. Aurelia must flee her country after a devastating assassination attempt. Her only option for freedom lies with another warden, her betrothed, Prince Valatin. To escape her fate, Aurelia disguises herself as a commoner in a new land and discovers a happiness her crown has never allowed. As she forges new bonds and perfects her magic, she begins to fall for a man who is forbidden to rule beside her. But the ghosts that haunt Aurelia refuse to abandon her, and she finds herself succumbing to their call as they expose a nefarious plot that only she can defeat. Will she be forced to choose between the weight of the crown and the freedom of her new life? Stay tuned. In a book that is deliciously creepy with a spellbinding edge, Smith has woven a dark and luscious political fantasy that's layered with heady romance, magic, and ghostly intrigue. Crystal Smith. Lovely. Again, haven't read fantasy in such a long time, but this book really caught my eye, mostly because of the booktubers, and I'm excited to get into Bloodleaf. Next book I picked up was a bargain, by the way. I wanted it for a while, and when I finally saw it was like $6, I think it was, picked it up. Dan Cheon, correct me in the comments if I am pronouncing that wrong, Ill Will. Also, the book like I said, have been wanting for a while, and seeing how cheap it was, I just bought it. So, I mean, not much of a backstory on that, sorry, but this is one of the little mantras Dustin... Oh, I should back up. There's a quote, "We are always telling a story to ourselves, against ourselves." This is one of the little mantras Dustin Tillman likes to share with his patients. And it's meant to be reassuring. But what if that story is a lie? A psychologist in suburban Cleveland, Dustin is drifting through his 40s when he hears the news. His adopted brother, Rusty, is being released from prison. 30 years ago, Rusty received a life sentence for the massacre of Dustin's parents, aunt, and uncle. The trial came to epitomize the 1980s hysteria over satanic cults. Despite the lack of physical evidence, the jury believed the outlandish accusations Dustin and his cousin made against Rusty. Now, after DNA analysis has overturned the conviction, Dustin braces for a reckoning. Oh my gosh. So something I definitely noticed when I keep rereading the summary, if you will, is that I just end up getting even more and more and more intrigued. Anyways, moving on. Meanwhile, one of Dustin's patients has been plying him with stories of the drowning deaths of a string of drunk college boys. At first, Dustin dismisses his patient's suggestions that a serial killer is at work as paranoid thinking, but as the two embark on an amateur investigation, Dustin starts to believe that there's more to the deaths than coincidence. Soon he becomes obsessed, crossing all professional boundaries and putting his own family in harm's way. Dun dun dun. From one of today's most renowned practitioners of literary suspense, Ill Will is an intimate thriller about the failures of memory and the perils of self-deception. In Don Cheon's nimble, chilling prose, the past looms over the present, turning each into a haunted place. Oh, boy. This is... Again, I just gotta say it, this book intrigued me, and I really wanted to read it, and since I saw his cape, I had to get it. So the final book I want to talk about in this video was one I wasn't even considering getting. But again, it was so dang cheap. I have Black Magic Sanction by Kim Harrison. And I gotta admit, she is pretty attractive, even though I'm not into women. So let's read about this book. Rachel Morgan has fought and hunted vampires, werewolves, banshees, demons, and other supernatural dangers as both witch and bounty hunter, and lived to tell the tale. But she's never faced off against her own kind. Until now. Denounced and shunned for dealing with demons and black magic, her best hope is life imprisonment. At worst, a forced lobotomy and genetic slavery. Only her enemies are strong enough to help her win her freedom. But trust comes hard when it hinges on the unscrupulous tycoon, Trent Kalamak, the demon Elga Lyerept, and an ex-boyfriend turned thief. It takes a witch to catch a witch, but survival bears a heavy price. Again, read the summary and I just loved the concept. And I just like supernatural stuff. Anyway, so again, book I had to buy. Did he need to buy it? No. But he did anyway. That's pretty much the narrative of every day of my life. So that was a book haul, obviously. And like I said, I'm just so super stoked to get into it. Yeah, so if you have any opinions on the books that I covered, go ahead, throw a comment down there. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, go ahead and click that subscribe button and hit the bell to notify you when I occasionally upload. And go ahead and like this video, and I will see you in the next. Bye!